Chapter 181. The Mist Cage. Looking at the modified QBZ-95 assault rifle in the space, Woody's eyes flashed with disappointment. He had hoped for an infinite ammo attribute like his shadow pistol. After the disappointment, he quickly composed himself, suppressing the sense of letdown, and took out a modified QBZ-95 from his personal space. He touched the barrel with his fingertips and examined it closely. The body was matte black with sharp lines. The heavy, heat-dissipating barrel felt substantial, its surface etched with fine anti-slip patterns. The grip was wrapped in anti-slip rubber, offering a steady feel. It came standard with a high-magnification optical sight and a red dot system. A 40-round high-capacity magazine was fitted into the underside, giving the whole weapon a precise and efficient tactical aesthetic. Beside him, Lin Yue had been waiting for a long time, seeing that the vehicle points hadn't changed at all. She was secretly guessing what was happening when she suddenly caught sight of the firearm in Woody's hand. Her spirit immediately lifted, and she leaned in to ask, "Big Brother Woody, is this for us?" She clearly remembered that Woody usually used a pistol and a knife. Woody nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping over everyone. He then took another modified QBZ assault rifle from his space and handed it to Lin Yu. "Distribute these two guns among yourselves. I'm not sure what we'll encounter in the next stage, so keep them with you." Zhu Kexin leaned against the carriage wall. After watching for a while and seeing that Wu Di only took out 2 rifles, she couldn't help but speak up. "I thought you were up to something else I didn't know about. Is that it?" "Boss, the cloud-piercing bow you gave me is much more powerful than this thing." Lin Yue looked at the attributes of the 2 modified QBZ assault rifles in her hands and quickly ran to Su Wanwan. "Sister Wanwan, this one is for you." After speaking, she turned to Zhu Kexin and said, "Sister Zhu, if you don't want it, I'll take it. I want to protect my sister." Su Wanwan didn't refuse. She took the rifle and began to examine it. Lin Shi watched Lin Yu from the side, reached out to stroke her hair and said, "Zhao Yu, give it to me." Lin Yu turned her head and met Lin Shi's serious gaze. She gripped the rifle tightly, her eyes filled with warmth. Her sister had always protected her. This time she wanted to hold the gun to protect her sister and everyone else. But seeing Lin Shi's determined look, she knew saying anything would be useless. In the end, she gently handed the rifle over. Seeing this, Wu Dai spoke up, "Everyone, get some rest early today." After saying that, he ignored the others and lay down in the driver's seat, closing his eyes to ponder the crises they might face tomorrow. Seeing this, Zhu Kexin immediately squeezed into the co-pilot seat and pleaded with Wu Di, "Boss, do I really have to stay here tonight?" Before Wu Di could reply, she muttered to herself again, "Fine. If I'm here, I'm here. At least it's better than where I used to sleep. Beds and stuff aren't that great anyway." Lin Shi and the other 2 laughed at the sight and then returned to the bedroom. Time reached exactly 5 a.m. Lin Shi, Lin Yu, and Su Wanwan walked out of the bedroom punctually. Without redundant communication, they all quietly began to organize their gear and check supplies. Everyone finished breakfast quickly and waited silently in the carriage. Time ticked away, and it was soon 5:59 a.m. The carriage fell completely silent. Everyone was ready, their eyes simultaneously fixing on Wu Di in the driver's seat. Wu Di sat in the driver's seat and checked the vehicle attributes one last time. Vehicle, level 5 vehicle. Max speed, 300 kilometers per hour. Vehicle accessories items, lucky pendant, gold, HX9 ion thruster, red, ceramic composite bulletproof glass, gold, Titan Mk4 composite chassis, gold. Vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor, orange smart constant temperature refrigerator, purple, atmospheric water collection unit, orange vehicle-mounted full-domain scanning radar, gold, 30mm chain auto cannon, orange intelligent hub, gold, Titan armor-piercing ram, purple, multispectral penetrating lighting unit, purple, composite armor coating, gold, all-domain stealth reconnaissance aircraft, purple, holographic phantom camouflage, gold, primal construct, Emperor's divine armor, red, matrix stabilization tracks, gold, supernuclear power module, orange, Anti-gravity suspension stabilization field generator. Orange, holographic cinema projection module. Purple, omni-dimensional perception array. Red, solid-state lithium iron phosphate integrated stack. Gold. As the time precisely jumped to 6 a.m., a familiar white light suddenly flared up, instantly enveloping the entire carriage. Everyone instinctively closed their eyes. As the white light slowly dissipated, the system notification interface popped up in front of everyone right on time. All region announcement. Welcome to the mist cage instance. The mist will distort perception, and greed will amplify risk. Survival is your only goal. Wu Dai opened his eyes immediately and quickly looked outside. They were currently parked on a two-way, two-lane road. The visibility ahead was less than 10 meters. The thick mist was like undiluted ink, completely swallowing the road ahead. Beyond 10 meters, not even a silhouette could be seen. He instinctively looked through the rearview mirror. Behind them was the same scene. The dense mist stretched on endlessly. On both sides of the road, the heavy mist completely obscured everything, leaving no trace of vegetation or buildings. It was as if the entire world consisted only of this mist-shrouded road, lonely and eerie. Chapter 182, Visual Deception. After observing the external situation, Wu Di immediately spoke into the air. Xiao Shi, can the radar be used normally? Commander, the omnidimensional perception array is unaffected. The radar can be used normally. Xiao Shi's voice was clear and steady. Hearing Xiao Shi's reply, Wu Di breathed a sigh of relief. Although he wasn't sure what they would encounter next, as long as the radar worked normally, this sky-filling fog would no longer be an impassable obstacle. Xu Kexin leaned in, her eyes full of curiosity, and asked softly, "Boss, is the equipment on your car really this strong? Is there anything else I don't know about?" At this moment, Lin Yu, sitting in the passenger seat, immediately looked proud and said to Xu Kexin with a smile, "Sister Zhu, we are the #1 team in the world. You have no idea what Big Brother Wu Di has installed." Xu Kexin looked at Lin Yue's smug expression, then turned back to Wu Di, her tone carrying a hint of coquettishness and dissatisfaction as she gritted her teeth and said, "Boss, I've already given myself to you. Yet you're still keeping things from me and not telling me anything. Is it because I was just picked up that I'm not valued?" As soon as Xu Kexin spoke, Lin Shi and Su Wanwan's gazes were instantly drawn over, landing on Wu Di in unison with strange looks in their eyes. Lin Yu also blushed, looking at Xu Kexin in surprise, then scanned Wu Di with a peculiar gaze, stammering, "Big Brother Wu Di, you too." Wu Di was still focused on observing the situation outside the vehicle, but he was stunned upon hearing Xu Kexin's words. He turned to look at her, his tone full of helplessness. "Can you please stop making trouble?" Then he commanded Xiao Shi in a deep voice. "Xiao Shi, maintain a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. Report immediately if the radar detects any abnormalities." "Understood, Commander," Xiao Shi responded, and the RV slowly started up, heading deep into the mist. After the RV started, Wu Di looked at the others who were still staring at him and sighed helplessly. "What exactly is going on in your heads? Stop overthinking." As he spoke, he turned his gaze toward Xu Kexin and added flatly, "If we need to get out and investigate today, you're the one going." Xu Kexin's shoulders slumped immediately, her face falling, but she didn't argue. Just then, Su Wanwan suddenly spoke up to point something out. "Big Brother Wu Di, look at the roadside." Hearing Su Wanwan's words, everyone immediately shifted their gaze toward the mist outside the vehicle. There, in the mist by the roadside, a familiar supply crate was placed at intervals. The crates flickered with a dazzling golden light, clearly visible even through the thick black fog. Wu Di's heart tightened, and he immediately asked Xiao Shi, "Xiao Shi, what's the situation outside? Has the radar detected any abnormalities?" "Commander, no abnormalities have been detected." Xiao Shi's voice came promptly. Hearing this reply, Wu Di frowned and fell into deep thought. He could clearly see the supply crates with his naked eye, yet the radar couldn't detect them. He remembered very clearly that the vehicle-mounted gold-quality radar could scan supply crates, but the current situation was completely irrational. Seeing this, Lin Shi asked softly, Xiao Shi, can't you scan the supply crates outside with the radar? Miss Lin Shi, after a comprehensive scan, no supply crates have been detected. Su Wanwan spoke up at the right time, her tone carrying a bit of speculation. Big brother Wu Di, could it be that this pervasive mist is interfering with the radar's detection? Just as Su Wanwan finished speaking, Lin Ye suddenly shouted urgently, Quick, look at the communication channel. Lots of people are talking about this. The few people in the car immediately turned their gaze toward Lin Yu. Lin Yu waved her hands hurriedly. Don't look at me. Look at the communication channel. Many survivors in there are saying that the golden supply crates in the mist are all fake. They're hallucinations. Hearing Lin Yu's words, Wu Di immediately opened the communication channel, and the screen was instantly filled with dense messages from survivors. Who understands this? The golden supply crates by the road look so tempting. I just got out of my vehicle to pick one up, and it vanished as soon as I got close. Warning! Do not touch those supply crates. They are all hallucinations created by the mist. My teammate has already been injured trying to pick up a fake crate. Did you guys get attacked? I checked several, and they were all illusions. I didn't encounter any monsters. Does any big shot know why the supply crates look so real but disappear as soon as you touch them? Is there a way to break the hallucinations? Is any big shot knows, don't keep it to yourself. Don't be stupid. This dungeon is called the Mist Cage. The mist must be distorting our perception. Those are all traps. I just fired a shot at one, and the bullet went right through. It's not a physical object at all, just a pure hallucination. Someone help me. I stepped into a hole and broke my leg trying to pick up a fake supply crate. Attention everyone, the supply crates are hallucinations. Don't touch them, don't chase them. Saving your life is what matters. There are real supply crates inside though. Haven't you guys encountered any? Just stay honestly inside your vehicle. Only by not being tempted can you survive. If we don't get the supply crates, we'll have no food, no water, and no fuel. How are we supposed to survive? Is anyone else like me? Even though I know they're fake, I still can't help but want to go take a look. They're just too tempting. After reading the messages in the communication channel, Wu Di let out a long breath, and his racing heart finally settled. Having confirmed that the radar was operating normally and that he hadn't missed any supply crates, he then spoke to reassure everyone. All right, you don't need to crowd around anymore. For now, the most important thing is still exchanging talent fragments and blueprints. Chapter 183, Supply Crates in the Mist. Hearing Wu Di's words, the group that had been huddling together returned to the sofas and sat down, starting to pay attention to the activity on the communication channel. Wu Di gazed at the thick mist outside, still pondering what the situation would be with the supply crates they might encounter next. The RV maintained a steady speed until an hour later, when Xiaoxi's notification suddenly rang out. Commander, a supply crate has been detected to the front left, preparing to stop. Everyone in the cabin was drawn by Xiaoxi's voice and hurried to the front to watch. Wu Di looked at the yellow dot, marking the supply crate on the center console screen, and noticed it was clearly located beyond the edge of the highway. As the RV slowly came to a halt, Wu Di stared at the supply crate located 50 meters off the road on the center console screen, then turned to look at Shu Kexin. Noticing Wu Di's gaze, Shu Kexin immediately put on an expression of someone ready to face death, saying firmly, Boss, say no more. I'll strike wherever you point. It's just going out to get a supply crate, right? Having said that, she prepared to get off the vehicle. Wait a moment, Wu Di hurriedly spoke up to stop her. After speaking, Wu Di stood up. Although he had previously said he would let Shu Kexin go down, in this specific situation, he still preferred to trust himself. Hearing Wu Di's voice, Shu Kexin turned back in confusion and said quickly, Boss, what's wrong? I can really do it. In truth, since coming here, Shu Kexin felt she had been freeloading, and felt a bit embarrassed. When she was alone before, she had endured countless dangers by gritting her teeth. Now that there was a chance to prove her worth, she was fully willing to do it. Looking at Shu Kexin's earnest expression, Wu Di said slowly, I'll go with you. Big brother Woody, let me go with Sister Zhu, Su Wanwan suddenly spoke up at that moment. Woody noticed that even Lin Yue and Lin Shi were about to speak, so he quickly said, "Don't overthink it. I'm just going down to check the situation. You'll be the ones getting the supply crates later on." Without waiting for their reaction, he opened the door and stepped out. Seeing this, Shu Kexin gave Lin Yu and the others a reassuring look, and quickly followed in Wu Di's footsteps. After getting off the vehicle, Wu Di took the long unused armor-piercing Tang saber from his personal space and gripped it tightly. Shu Kexin took out her cloud-piercing bow and stayed close by Wu Di's side. "Boss, are we just going straight over there?" Shu Kexin asked quickly, seeing Wu Di head directly toward the supply crate after getting out. "What's the matter?" Wu Di turned back and asked in confusion. "Boss, I've seen this on TV. In situations like this, people go back to back to prevent sneak attacks," Shu Kexin explained with a serious face. Wu Di looked at the serious Shu Kexin and sighed helplessly. "Just stay beside me and keep an eye on the surroundings." With that, he stepped off the road and into the thick black mist. Once inside, Wu Di realized that while the mist was completely opaque from the vehicle, even being inside it, his vision was still limited. Visibility was barely 1 meter, and everything around him was blurred. Suddenly, Wu Di felt his sleeve being pulled. He turned to see Shu Kexin looking around warily, whispering, "Boss, slow down. The visibility is too low, let's not get separated." Seeing Shu Kexin's cautious state, Wu Di took a deep breath, reached out to grab her wrist, and said in a low voice, "Follow me." He then walked quickly toward the supply crate. Being pulled by Wu Di, Shu Kexin cried out, Hey, boss, slow down." The distance was only 50 meters. With Wu Di pulling Shu Kexin along at a fast pace, the two reached the supply crate in just a few seconds. Looking at the supply crate lying quietly on the ground, Wu Di realized that the crate he had seen glowing with golden light from a distance was, based on its appearance now, just a silver supply crate. Shu Kexin looked disappointed and said, "Boss, isn't this just a silver supply crate? It looks so enticing from the vehicle, I thought it was high-grade stuff." Wu Di put the supply crate directly into his personal space and said sternly, "Let's go back." The moment they turned around, they discovered that the RV parked by the roadside had vanished without a trace. Even the vehicle's constant lights were nowhere to be seen. A flash of surprise crossed Shu Kexin's face, but she quickly calmed down and said in a heavy tone, "Boss, do you think the people in the communication channel got lost here like this? Luckily, we have the vehicle positioning function. Otherwise, this would be real trouble." Wu Di looked at the scene before him and nodded slowly. Never mind others. Even he would be completely unable to discern any direction in this environment. Fortunately, in the previous stage, they had obtained the vehicle positioning function. "Boss, how did you get all these strange items? Hey boss, slow down." Before Shu Kexin could finish her sentence, she was dragged toward the RV by Wu Di. Chapter 184, Receiving Supply Crates. Back inside the vehicle, Wu Di sat back in the driver's seat. He gave a command in a deep voice to the air. "Xiao Shi, continue forward." "Received, Commander." On the other side, Shu Kexin was being pulled onto the sofa by Lin Shi and the others, vividly describing her experience in the black mist with a tone full of relief. She patted her chest and sighed with emotion. "It has to be, boss. If not for the vehicle positioning function, I reckon we really would have been trapped in the black mist and unable to return today." Wu Di didn't join in their chatter, keeping his focus on the screen and paying attention to every piece of information in the communication channel. He soon discovered that not all supply crates were hidden deep within the mist. Many ordinary supply crates were scattered along the edge of the road. In addition, Wu Di noticed that many survivors had come up with ways to deal with the mist. As long as they tied themselves tightly to their vehicle with a rope, they didn't have to worry about losing their way or not being able to find their way back. The RV drove forward steadily. With the current road conditions, Wu Di didn't need to worry too much. He could completely hand over control to Xiao Shi. Could it be that the further away from the road, the higher the level of the supply crate? Will there be monsters lurking deep in the mist? These questions swirled in Wu Di's mind, with no answers for now. Less than an hour into the journey, Xiao Shi's notification sounded again. "Commander, supply crate signal detected. Approaching and stopping." Following Xiao Shi's prompt, the RV slowed down and came to a smooth stop. Wu Di looked at the center console screen. The yellow dot representing the supply crate on the radar was about 5 meters from the roadside, extremely close. After the RV came to a complete stop, Wu Di looked back to see Zhu Kexin and the others all looking at him, their eyes filled with an eagerness to prove themselves. Looking at the group who all seemed to want to show their worth, Wu Di said, "Zhu Kexin, you and Lin Shi go get it together." "Don't worry, boss. I guarantee I'll protect your little sister Zishi perfectly." Zhu Kexin raised the bow and arrow in her hand and said confidently, patting her chest. Lin Shi's cheeks instantly flushed at Zhu Kexin's words, and she hurriedly reached out to drag Zhu Kexin toward the door. Just as Lin Shi stepped out of the door, Lin Yue immediately leaned in close to Big Brother Wu Di and asked with a slight frown and a worried face, "Big Brother Wu Di, sister and the others won't get into trouble, will they?" Wu Di's gaze fell on Lin Shi and Zhu Kexin, who hadn't even entered the black mist yet. He was speechless, and before he could say anything, Su Wanwan walked softly to Lin Yu's side, took her hand and comforted her gently. "Xiao Yu, don't worry. At such a close distance, they'll be fine." Wu Di watched silently as the two entered the black mist. In less than a minute, Lin Shi and Zhu Kexin hurried out and quickly returned to the RV. Lin Yu immediately stood up and rushed to Lin Shi's side, asking urgently, "Sister, are you okay? Did you encounter anything unusual?" Zhu Kexin sighed with feigned grievance. "Oh, why is no one worried about me?" Only then did Lin Yu realize, hurriedly apologizing, "Sister Shu, I'm sorry. Are you okay too?" Without delay, Wu Di immediately ordered Xiao Shi, continue forward. Maintain a constant speed of 120 kilometers per hour. Received, Commander. Maintaining a constant speed of 120. As the RV started moving again, Lin Shi and the others walked over to the driver's seat. Lin Shi said softly to Big Brother Wu Di, "Big Brother Wu Di, that was just an ordinary supply crate. Nothing unusual." Wu Di nodded slightly and said, "Looking at the situation today, we should get quite a few supply crates. From now on, you guys go down in pairs to collect them." Lin Yu had returned to her usual lively self, patting her chest as she guaranteed, "Don't worry, Big Brother Wu Di. We can definitely handle such a small thing." After speaking, she hurried back to the passenger seat, her eyes fixed on the mist ahead, as if she could pierce through the thick fog to see the next supply crate appearing. However, the rest of the journey was unexpectedly smooth. By the time everyone finished lunch, all the supply crates they encountered were within 50 meters, and no abnormalities occurred throughout. At this moment, Lin Ye sat in the passenger seat, gesticulating excitedly as she said cheerfully, "Big Brother Wu Di, we've already gotten 2 silver, 2 black iron, 1 bronze, and 1 ordinary supply crate today." Zhu Kexin also leaned over and asked with eyes full of curiosity, "Boss, your RV is so powerful. Is the supply crate above silver the gold rank? I've never seen one before." Chapter 185, Golden Treasure Chest. Wu Di shook his head slightly and responded truthfully, "I haven't seen one either." At this moment, his mind was fully occupied with thoughts of whether they would encounter an attack in the fog next. Although he hadn't seen any news about attacks on the communication channel yet, this unusually smooth progress always made him feel that something was wrong. It was too simple, which instead felt a bit eerie. Zhu Kexin noticed that after Wu Di replied, a hint of worry clouded his face, so she quickly leaned in. "Boss, what are you thinking about? Tell me, and I'll help you think it through." Wu Di raised his eyes to scan the group and asked slowly, "Do you think today's crisis is really this simple?" Lin Yue immediately replied with a confident face, "Big Brother Wu Di, we have the radar. It can detect monsters and accurately locate supply crates, so what's the difficulty? If we really encounter a monster, we can just blast it away, and that'll be the end of it." Hearing Lin Yu's words, Wu Di suddenly came back to his senses. It seemed he had indeed been overly cautious. Not to mention that today was only the first day of the dungeon. Just considering their current strength, the problems encountered by the survivors in the communication channel were simply not worth mentioning for them. Realizing this, Woody breathed a sigh of relief and said gently to everyone, "It's nothing, I was just overthinking. You don't need to worry." Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, it was around 3 in the afternoon. Xiaoxi's notification sound suddenly rang out. "Commander, a supply crate signal has been detected, and a treasure box monster has also been detected, approaching soon." The group immediately gathered in front of the car, their eyes locked tightly on the center console screen. The screen clearly showed that the supply crate was about 500 meters away from the edge of the road, and next to the yellow dot representing the supply crate, there were 2 striking red dots flickering. Obviously, those were the treasure box monsters that Xiaoxi had mentioned. Immediately after, detailed information about the monster popped up on the center console screen. Treasure box monster. Appearance: an alien monster disguised as a supply crate, covered with an alluring luster on the surface, making it almost indistinguishable from a real supply crate. Attack method: when touched, the box body will instantly split open to bite the one who touched it. Characteristics: skilled at camouflage, extremely stealthy, and often lurks near supply crates. Weakness: the inside of the box body is the attack weakness. After reading the introduction on the screen, Shu Kexin immediately raised her hand and said with an eager expression, "Boss, I'll go get it." Lin Shi followed closely behind and said softly, "I'll go with Sister Shu." Wu Di turned to look at the 2 of them, his expression showing a hint of hesitation. A distance of 500 meters, plus 2 treasure box monsters, he couldn't help but feel worried. Lin Shi keenly sensed Wu Di's concern and met his gaze, saying with a determined look, "Big brother Wu Di, we can do it. We will definitely be careful and absolutely won't push ourselves." Looking at Lin Shi's serious and determined expression, Wu Di pondered for a moment and nodded slowly. "You must be careful. If you encounter any danger, retreat immediately. Do not force it under any circumstances." "Don't worry, boss." Shu Kexin patted her chest, making a solemn promise, and then, together with Lin Shi, opened the car door and stepped quickly into the thick fog. Wu Di and the others waited quietly in the car, counting the time second by second. After about 20 minutes, the car door was gently pushed open, and Shu Kexin and Lin Shi walked in side by side. The expressions of the 2 were completely different. Shu Kexin looked full of surprise, with a hint of disbelief in her eyes. Lin Shi, on the other hand, was full of pleasant surprise, her lips curling up uncontrollably, and her eyes filled with excitement. As soon as Lin Shi entered, she couldn't wait to walk up to Wu Di, her tone unable to hide her excitement. "Big brother Wu Di, it's a golden treasure chest." As she spoke, she took out a treasure chest that radiated a brilliant golden light from her personal space and placed it gently on the coffee table. The group immediately gathered around, their eyes locked tightly on the golden treasure chest, filled with curiosity and surprise. Even their breathing grew lighter. Lin Yu leaned in at the very front, staring at the golden treasure chest with eyes full of anticipation. "This is my first time seeing a golden treasure chest. Big brother Wu Di, should we open it now? Will we get a blueprint for a house inside?" Obviously, Lin Yu was still thinking about building a house within the realm. Su Wanwan didn't let her imagination run wild like Lin Yu. She noticed that Shu Kexin had been frowning, her expression looking particularly strange. She quickly walked up and asked softly with concern, "Sister Shu, what's wrong? Did you get hurt by accident?" Shu Kexin then came back to her senses, turned to look at Lin Shi, and said with a tone full of unbelievable surprise, "Zixi, you are too amazing. Those 2 treasure box monsters from just now. I hadn't even reacted yet, and you had already dealt with them." Lin Shi's cheeks flushed slightly from the praise, and she smiled gently, saying modestly, "I just have a higher physique attribute. In other aspects, I can't compare to Sister Shu." This was indeed the truth. Ever since she came to Wu Di's side, she hadn't experienced any battles. Regarding actual combat ability, she knew clearly in her heart that she was far inferior to Shu Kexen. Time continued to pass, and before they knew it, it was evening. The group had a simple dinner and then sat around the coffee table, preparing to count the day's harvest. At this moment, the coffee table was neatly filled with the supply crates harvested today. 1 golden treasure chest, 2 silver treasure chests, 2 black iron treasure chests, 1 bronze treasure chest, and 1 ordinary supply crate. Besides that, there was also a talent treasure chest that had just refreshed, exclusive to Su Wanwan, placed on the coffee table. Chapter 186, Reality and Illusion. Su Wanwan took a deep breath, being the first to pick up her own talent treasure chest. She opened it gently, and as the treasure chest dissipated, Su Wanwan immediately displayed the blueprint's attributes to everyone. Space Expansion Scroll, Special Item. After use, it can add 2 square meters of space to a vehicle. Lin Yu's eyes lit up, and she immediately leaned in, shouting excitedly, "Wow! Big Brother Wudi, can we expand the RV space again?" Shu Kexen stared at the attributes on the blueprint with an exceptionally strange expression. She couldn't help but complain, "This RV space is already so big. Just how many of these things have you guys used?" Lin Shi and Su Wanwan looked at each other and smiled, not responding. Looking at Shu Kexen's current reaction was like seeing their former selves, full of surprise and disbelief. Lin Shi turned to look at Lin Yu and said softly, "Xiao Yu, give me talent amplification." "Okay, sister." Lin Yu nodded immediately and raised her hand to release talent amplification on Lin Shi, her eyes full of anticipation. Subsequently, Lin Shi picked up the golden treasure chest and opened it gently. As the treasure chest vanished, she looked at the gains inside and showed all the resources to the others with a face full of surprise. Attribute fruit ×3, effect, physique, +1 after consumption, atomic mass substance ×5, fuel, 200 units, rice, 100 kg ×1, vacuum-packed braised food cans, 1 box. Lin Shi turned to look at Wu Di, her eyes filled with a bit of surprise and anticipation. Wu Di suppressed the excitement in his heart and said in a steady tone, "Continue." Immediately after, Lin Shi picked up 2 silver treasure chests and opened them one by one, displaying all the resources inside to everyone. Metal block ×60, electronic component ×30, glass tymeston, bagged refined salt ×5, vacuum dehydrated vegetable packs ×5 bags. Simple cultivation pot design blueprint, green quality, can be used to craft a simple cultivation pot. The pot body features basic water retention and breathability structures, allowing it to be filled with soil for growing conventional crops. Using it permanently unlocks the blueprint. Crafting requirements: plastic time zone, soil ×2. Seeing that Lin Shi had used up her talent's daily limit, Lin Yu leaned in and said with a small frown, "Sister, except for the atomic mass substance Big Brother Wudi needs, these other resources seem pretty useless. Your luck is terrible." Shu Kexen's face darkened on the side, and the corners of her mouth twitched. She now knew the talents of Lin Shi and the others. Remembering how she used to open chests alone and only get ordinary resources every time, her heart was filled with mixed emotions. She couldn't help but mutter under her breath, "Is this what it's like to be a cheater? This is just too much." Lin Shi ignored their teasing and directly handed the 3 attribute fruits, 5 units of atomic mass substance, and the simple cultivation pot design blueprint she had just obtained to Wu Di. Just as Wu Di took the resources, Xiaoxi's warning tone suddenly sounded, "Commander, an abnormal situation has been detected. Please be alert." This sentence instantly grabbed everyone's attention. They immediately put away their expressions and looked toward the front windshield in unison. In the next second, an eerie scene met everyone's eyes. Within the thick mist, familiar figures emerged. Standing before each person's window was their closest relative. Lin Yue looked at her mother outside the window, her eyes instantly turning red. With a choked voice, she couldn't help but call out softly, "Mom." Tears welled up in her eyes, and her feet subconsciously moved toward the car door, her heart filled with the impulse to rush out. Zhu Kexin looked at her grandmother outside the window. The surprise on her face was gradually replaced by longing. Her eyes grew slightly hot, and her lips moved, but she couldn't say a word. She just stared fixedly at that familiar figure, her eyes full of daze and yearning. It had been too long since she last saw her grandmother, and she had even thought she would never see her again. Su Wanwan gazed at her grandfather outside the window, her hands tightly clutching the hem of her clothes. Tears slid down silently, her face full of grievance and longing as she whispered, "Grandpa, I miss you so much." Her voice was very soft, yet it carried an unmistakable tremble. Lin Shi looked at her grandmother outside the window, a layer of mist rising in her eyes. Her expression was gentle, yet dazed, as she moved her feet slightly. Her eyes were full of yearning, yet they also held a trace of subtle hesitation. She knew this was too bizarre, but the grandmother before her seemed all too real. Wu Di looked at his parents outside the window, and his entire body instantly froze. The steadiness in his eyes faded, replaced by deep confusion and daze. He stood there in a daze, his gaze locked onto his parents' figures, his mind in total chaos. How long had it been? He seemed unable to remember clearly, only recalling that the last time they met was before the disaster arrived. He hadn't been able to spend time with them properly, or even say a word of farewell. The parents before him still had the same smiles, but the white hair at their temples was exceptionally piercing. Was it real? Or was it an illusion created by the mist? He couldn't help but reach out his hand, wanting to touch the figures on the window, his heart full of struggle. He craved for this to be real, craved to speak to his parents one more time. But his logic kept reminding him that this was too bizarre and could never be real. He stood there, caught in a dilemma, confusion flooding over him like a tide, making even his breathing heavy. Chapter 187, Myriad Transformation Origin Seed. Just as everyone was caught in a daze of longing for their loved ones and couldn't extricate themselves, Lin Yue had already walked to the car door, her fingers tightly gripping the handle, about to force it open and rush out. "Xiao Yu, what are you doing? Don't go down!" Lin Shi was quick to react and grabbed Lin Yu. Lin Yu paused, turning her head with eyes full of confusion and grievance, asking softly, "Sister, isn't that Mom? Why can't I go down?" Zhu Kexin also quickly regained her composure, forcefully suppressing the surging longing in her heart. Her expression became solemn as she spoke. "No, this is too eerie. We've been in the fog this whole time. How could relatives suddenly appear? Moreover, everyone is seeing their own kin. It can't possibly be real." Su Wanwan raised her hand to wipe the tears from her face and softly agreed, "Yeah, Grandpa. He's clearly gone. How could he be here?" Her voice carried a hint of a sob, but also a trace of clear-headed reason, reminding herself that this was far too abnormal. Lin Shi also set aside the daze in her eyes, her expression becoming serious as she calmly analyzed. "It's definitely an illusion." Xiao Shi detected an anomaly. "Furthermore, all we've encountered in the fog so far is danger. It's impossible for so many relatives to suddenly appear, especially those we care about most. This is clearly an attempt to lure us out of the car." Wu Di slowly came back to his senses, suppressing the confusion and longing in his heart. His expression became steady again as his gaze swept over the others, and he said in a deep voice, "The radar hasn't detected any life forms. Eyes can deceive, but radar won't. Stop looking outside." Lin Yu bit her lip, her eyes still red and full of reluctance. "But she looks exactly like Mom, even her smile is identical. How can she be fake?" Zhu Kexin stepped forward and gently stroked Lin Yue's head, her voice soft yet firm. "Xiao Yu, I know you miss your mom, and I miss my grandma very much too, but this is truly fake. If we really get out, not only will we not see our real relatives, but we'll also put ourselves in fatal danger. Then we truly won't have another chance to see them." Su Wanwan also softly comforted her. "Xiao Yu, don't be sad. This is just a monster's trick. We can't fall for it." Wu Di looked at them and said solemnly, "Xiao Shi, the car doors are not to be opened without my permission." "Understood, Commander." After instructing Xiao Shi, Wu Di added to the women, "All of you, go into the domain space now and don't come out. Although Wu Di wasn't clear about the specific situation outside, he knew that whether Lin Shi and the others were present or not wouldn't help the current situation. Rather than letting them stay here to be affected by illusions and fall into danger, it was better to have them hide in the domain space. This would ensure their safety and allow him to operate without worries. Hearing Wu Di's words, Lin Shi immediately spoke up. "Big brother Wu Di, let them go in. I'll stay here with you." Wu Di gently shook his head, his tone remaining firm. "No, you go in together. Once inside, keep a close eye on the communication channel. If there's any anomaly, notify me immediately." Seeing Wu Di's resolute attitude, the words of persuasion they were about to speak were swallowed back down, and they could only nod obediently. Wu Di turned to Lin Yu and said deeply, "Lin Yu, apply talent amplification to me." Lin Yu nodded immediately and raised her hand to cast talent amplification on Wu Di. Once the buff was complete, Lin Shi, Lin Yu, Shu Kexen, and Su Wanwan looked out the window again. The figures of their relatives still stood in the fog, their expressions familiar, but this time the daze and longing in their eyes were gone, replaced by wariness and determination. They all knew that if they were deceived by this illusion, what awaited them could be fatal danger. Subsequently, the four of them entered the domain space one after another. With only Wu Di left in the car, he slowly returned to the driver's seat, forcing himself to calm down and suppress the remaining longing and emotional waves. He looked at the supplies in his personal space, preparing to begin today's talent strengthening. Wu Di immediately looked at the attributes of the Fate Track Star Core in his personal space. Fate Track Star Core, special item. The Tao gives birth to all things, and each returns to its root. Only by maintaining stillness and sincerity can one know the eternal. This was an item obtained earlier in the Integral Hub City for 350,000 points. Wu Di had been waiting for the refresh of Talent Effect 2. Although he still didn't know what the effect of this item was, he knew that such a special item would definitely undergo changes after being strengthened. He then began to use his talent. Ding, talent, rule breakthrough, effect 2 is active. Item promoted to rank 3. Fate Track Star Core, special item, has been promoted to Myriad Transformation Origin Seed, special item. Myriad Transformation Origin Seed, special item. This dormant seed seems to contain the starting point of the evolution of all things. When it is awakened, all things in the world will follow its inner laws, shedding their old appearance and welcoming a new life. Remark, the old order collapses. New states are born, breaking the limits of myriad laws, changing world rules, and leading all things to transcendence. Chapter 188, Omni Furnace. Looking at the attributes of the strengthened Myriad Transformation Origin Seed within his personal space, Wu Di was filled with confusion. He immediately moved his mind and took it out of his personal space. The moment his fingertips touched the Myriad Transformation Origin Seed, a gentle yet majestic force traveled up his fingers. This seed did not look like an ordinary grain, but rather like a transparent crystal the size of a pigeon egg. It was milky white and translucent, with several winding golden patterns embedded inside, resembling flowing ribbons of light. When light passed through the crystal, it emitted a soft halo, and tiny specks of light slowly floated within, as if nurturing a new life force. The moment he held it in his hand, an inexplicable intuition surged into Wu Di's heart. This crystal seemed capable of being used to upgrade his talent level. This feeling was baseless, yet it became clearer and stronger the longer his fingertips remained in contact with the crystal. A strong feeling also arose from the bottom of his heart, as if his own talent was like a hungry young beast, crazily craving the power contained within the crystal. Wu Di himself did not notice that his hand holding the heavy object was unconsciously tightening, his knuckles turning pale. Just as the force in his fingertips reached its limit, and the skin on his fingertips was about to be broken by the sharp edges of the crystal, the Myriad Transformation Origin Seed suddenly erupted with a blinding golden radiance, instantly breaking free from his palm and hovering directly above the driver's seat. Immediately after, the golden radiance surged, transforming into a pillar of light that reached the sky, breaking through the roof of the RV and piercing straight into the mist-covered horizon. The pillar of light dyed the entire dense mist a dazzling gold, and even the abnormal energy in the surrounding air emitted sizzling sounds of dissolution under the illumination of the pillar, gradually dissipating completely. Within the pillar of light, countless tiny golden specks flew lightly like fireflies, slowly pouring into Wudai's body. He only felt a violent yet gentle force instantly sweep through his entire body. His limbs and bones felt a burning soreness, yet it was filled with an indescribable sense of comfort. The talent power within him was crazily agitated and tempered. His mind buzzed as if some shackles were shattering and some new power was reorganizing and being born. He wanted to raise his hand to grab something, but his body was weak, and his consciousness began to blur, eventually falling backward uncontrollably and leaning heavily against the backrest of the driver's seat. Before losing consciousness, Wudai's final thought screamed in his mind, filled with annoyance and unwillingness. "Damn it! I was so busy fiddling with this thing that I didn't even get to use today's talent, strengthening." Before the words even finished, he completely lost consciousness and fell into deep darkness. He did not know how much time had passed when a faint and dim ray of light penetrated the mist, landing gently on his face and slowly waking him from his chaotic coma. When Wudai opened his eyes again, that faint ray of light from the mist seeped in through the gap in the car window. The light was dim and soft, making him subconsciously squint his eyes. He slowly turned his neck and discovered that he was still leaning against the driver's seat, with nothing unusual about his body, only the gentle tactile sensation of the myriad transformation origin seed remaining on his fingertips. He raised his hand to press his throbbing brow, his gaze falling on the center console screen. 7:15 a.m. "Big Brother Wudai, you're finally awake!" A crisp and anxious voice suddenly rang out. Lin Yu, in the passenger seat, was the first to notice him waking up and immediately leaned over abruptly. Her eyes were filled with joy and worry, and the urgency in her tone could not be hidden at all. Hearing Lin Yue's voice, Xu Kexin, Su Wanwan, and Lin Shi, who had been guarding nearby, also immediately gathered around. The gazes of several people fell uniformly upon Wudai, filled with unconcealable concern. Xu Kexin frowned, her tone carrying a hint of teasing. Yet she could not hide her concern. "Boss, did you secretly reward yourself last night? We called for you as soon as we woke up this morning, but we couldn't wake you up after calling several times. We thought something had happened to you, but it was Xiao Shi who said there were no abnormalities." Su Wanwan gently tugged on Wudai's sleeve, her eyes filled with worry. "Big Brother Wudai, are you okay? Is something uncomfortable? Do you want to rest for a while longer?" Lin Shi did not speak, she just quietly looked at Wudai, the worry in her eyes undisguised. Her gaze carefully scrutinized Wudai's face, fearing he might have the slightest bit of abnormality. Wudai looked at the people gathered around him, suppressed the waves in his heart, and did not answer immediately. He closed his eyes and carefully recalled everything that happened last night. The phenomenon of the myriad transformation origin seed, the surging desire within his body, and that majestic force that swept through his entire body. Fragmented memories gradually pieced themselves together, and a clear outline emerged in his mind. He suddenly remembered that yesterday, not only did he not have time to use the talent strengthening, but he had also accidentally triggered the power of the myriad transformation origin seed. Thinking of this, Wudai's heart tightened. He immediately moved his mind, opened the system interface, and locked his gaze firmly on the talent column. Talent name, Omni Furnace, Mythical Grade End. Effect, the usage count refreshes at midnight daily, 1/1. Designate 1, main sacrifice, and sacrifice any number of secondary sacrifices. The main sacrifice will be upgraded by at least 2 tiers, no level cap, and its final strength and attribute values will undergo equivalent transformation and stacking based on the total value and rarity of the secondary sacrifices. Chapter 189, Guaranteed High Quality. Looking at the brand new talent description on the interface, Woody's pupils constricted, and waves of shock surged in his heart. Compared to his previous talent, the changes were earth-shattering. The number of uses had plummeted from 5 times a day to just once. While seemingly a nerf, the 2 points, minimum 2-tier increase, and no level cap, represented a qualitative leap. Even with only 1 chance, it was far more valuable than the previous 5 uses. However, the sacrifice function left him full of doubt. The selection of main and sub-sacrifices, the side effects after sacrificing, and the measurement of sub-sacrifice value, countless questions swirled in his mind. He was both delighted by the talent's evolution and cautious of the unknown. What frustrated him even more was that he still had 5 unused talent enhancement opportunities yesterday. Had he known, he would have used Talent Effect 1 to enhance first. At this moment, Woody's heart was a cocktail of emotions. The ecstasy of the talent's evolution, confusion over the sacrifice function, and regret over the unused talent charges. His expression shifted from solemn to joyful, and then to a hint of distress. The people nearby saw his changing expressions clearly. They exchanged glances, seeing the confusion in each other's eyes, and no one dared to disturb him lightly. Finally, Lin Yue couldn't hold back anymore. She gently tugged at Woody's arm and asked softly, "Big brother Woody, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Or is something on your mind?" Woody finally snapped back to reality. He looked at the people surrounding him and said softly, "I'm fine, you don't need to keep crowding around me." Seeing that he was indeed all right, Lin Shi said, "Big brother Woody, I'll go get you something to eat." After saying that, she turned and walked away. Su Wanwan and Shu Kexin remained where they were. Shu Kexin spoke first, her tone carrying a bit of curiosity. "Boss, have you looked at the communication channel? Someone in the channel said last night that something strange happened." As soon as she finished, Lin Yu immediately chimed in, her tone full of excitement. "That's right, big brother Woody. Not long after we entered the domain space last night, someone said they saw a golden pillar of light piercing the sky. It was amazing." "I'm not sure." Woody shook his head slightly. He didn't know that those so-called anomalies were exactly what he had triggered during his talent ascension last night. At this moment, he had only one thought in mind, to figure out exactly what effects his current talent had. He slowly stood up, intending to enter the domain space for a careful study. His sudden movement caused the people around him to look at each other in surprise. When he walked past Lin Shi, Woody stopped and said softly, "I'll come out to eat in a bit." After saying that, he stepped directly into the domain space. As soon as he entered the domain space, a familiar aura greeted him. The space was still bright, and the air was filled with the faint fragrance of fresh soil. The vegetable patch that Lin Shi and the others had personally cultivated was growing well, with vibrant green leaves still dotted with fine dewdrops, looking full of life. In addition, Woody noticed mountains of resources piled up in a corner of the space, neatly arranged. It was clearly what Lin Shi and the others had organized over the past few days. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. His gaze swept across a corner of the space, where a layer of clean clothes was spread out on an open area. He assumed it was where Lin Yue and the others had rested last night. Woody walked over and sat down gently. With a thought, he opened the system's talent interface, preparing to try out this brand new Omni-Furnace talent for himself. The moment the interface popped up, he saw that the talent usage screen was clearly divided into 2 sections, the main sacrifice interface and the sub-sacrifice interface. He experimented with the controls and found that any item in his personal space could be added to these 2 interfaces without any restrictions. After thinking for a moment, Wudai decided to experiment with the attribute fruits he had harvested yesterday. He immediately set 1 attribute fruit as the main sacrifice, and then added all the remaining 2 attribute fruits from his personal space into the sub-sacrifice interface. Once everything was ready, he clicked the Use Talent button. Ding. Do you choose attribute fruit times 1 as the main sacrifice and attribute fruit times 2 as the sub-sacrifice? Woody did not hesitate for a second and immediately confirmed. Ding. Talent used successfully. Obtained mutant constitution fruit time zone. Mutant constitution fruit. Physique plus 120 after consumption. Limited to 1 consumption per person. Wu Dai looked at the final mutant constitution fruit and murmured softly, "Is this the evolved talent?" Then he looked at the rest of the resources in his personal space and couldn't help but give a bitter laugh. He knew in his heart that this evolved talent would definitely bring him a huge boost, but the biggest headache right now was the lack of sufficient materials. All the blueprints he had encountered so far required quantum essence as a material, but he only had 10 units on hand, which was far from enough. Forget it, I won't think about that for now. At the very least, every talent output now is of high quality. Wu Di suppressed the concerns in his heart and comforted himself softly, but the next second he slapped himself in frustration. He had actually forgotten to have Lin Yue give him a talent amplification. Chapter 190, a rare moment of relaxation. Wu Di gripped the mutant constitution fruit in his hand and stored it in his personal space. Suppressing the frustration and anticipation in his heart, he stood up and walked out of the domain space. As soon as he stepped out of the space entrance, a clear 3D sound effect reached his ears. The clanging of metal, the roar of mecha transformations, and stirring battle music, all of which were completely at odds with the thick mist outside the vehicle. He instinctively paused and looked up, only to see Lin Shi, Shu Kexin, Su Wanwan, and Lin Yui huddled together on the sofa in the RV's living room. Their eyes were fixed on the holographic projection in front of them. Their expressions so focused it was as if everything around them had nothing to do with them. The light and shadow from the holographic cinema danced across their faces, reflecting their expressions vividly. There was tension, but also an irrepressible excitement. Wu Di arched an eyebrow, filled with surprise, and instinctively asked, "What act are you all putting on?" As his voice fell, only the movie's sound effects remained in the carriage. No one responded to him. Wu Di was stunned for a moment, before realizing that they hadn't noticed his appearance at all. Their attention was entirely concentrated on the holographic projection, and they didn't even blink. He shook his head helplessly and approached slowly with light steps. It wasn't until he reached the side of the sofa that Lin Yue accidentally caught sight of him. Her eyes suddenly lit up, and she reached out to pat Shu Kexin beside her, shouting excitedly, "Big brother Wu Di, you're out!" Lin Yue's voice broke the immersion in the carriage, and the other three also snapped back to their senses. Lin Shi instinctively raised her hand and said to the air, "Xiao Shi, turn off the sound." Received, Miss Lin Shi. As soon as Lin Shi finished speaking, the sound effects in the carriage vanished instantly. Only then did the group turn to look at Wu Di, their faces still carrying a hint of the daze from just being pulled out of the movie's plot. Wu Di finally saw clearly that the holographic projection was playing Transformers. With the cool mecha transformations, intense battle scenes, and shocking visual effects, it was no wonder they were so absorbed. Wu Di's gaze swept over the holographic projection and then at the others, his tone carrying a hint of confusion. "Why did you suddenly start watching a movie, and with the volume so high?" Their expressions darkened. Shu Kexin tucked away her smile and said gravely, "Boss, something strange happened outside after you went in. We had no choice but to turn on the holographic cinema." Lin Yu said with lingering fear. "Eerie sounds were coming from outside. At first they were very faint, but then they became clearer and clearer. I clearly heard my mother's voice, and it made my heart race with panic." Su Wanwan added, "Those sounds have a magical quality. They can lure people into opening the door. Many people in the communication channel have disappeared after going out." Lin Shi also spoke slowly, adding, "We were truly worried about being tempted by those eerie sounds, so we specifically turned on the holographic cinema and cranked up the volume so that we couldn't hear the sounds outside." Shu Kexin suddenly interjected with a hint of emotion in her voice. "Boss, I really love you to death right now. If it weren't for you, I'd probably be just like the others in the communication channel. There's really no comparison without the pain." Hearing Shu Kexin's words, they all nodded in agreement. Indeed, if it weren't for Woody, they would probably be like the other survivors in the communication channel, still wondering how to deal with the situation outside. Once the atmosphere relaxed, Lin Yu was the first to regain her lively nature. Taking Woody's hand, she warmly invited him. "Big brother Woody, come and watch with us. This Transformers movie is really good. The mecha transformations inside are so cool. Do you think our RV might be able to transform one day?" Shu Kexen chimed in with a teasing look, patting the empty spot in the middle of the sofa. "That's right, boss. We saved the middle seat for you. Wanwan and Jixie's bodies are so soft. If you sit in the middle, you can lean on both sides. It'll be incredibly comfortable." As she spoke, Shu Kexen squeezed Su Wanwan and Lin Shi, her eyes full of playfulness. Su Wanwan and Lin Shi both blushed slightly, their eyes showing a hint of shyness as they peeked at Woody before quickly looking away. Woody looked at them, his tone a bit speechless. He looked at the group and said, "You guys keep watching. I'm going to the driver's seat to check the situation." In truth, Woody felt a slight wavering in his heart. Seeing them squeeze together on the sofa and the cool mecha battles on the holographic projection, that rare moment of relaxation and warmth was a feeling he seldom experienced in this dangerous domain space. He also wanted to sit down and watch the movie with them, temporarily forgetting the dangers outside and the concerns in his heart, but he knew the current environment simply wouldn't allow it. Seeing Woody's firm attitude, Shu Kexen stopped teasing. Shrugging her shoulders, she said, all right, then be careful, boss. If anything happens, remember to call us, we can help too." Lin Shi spoke softly at this point. "Big brother Woody, I've already prepared a meal for you. It's on the table." Woody nodded, picked up the food from the table, and turned toward the driver's seat. After sitting down, he couldn't help but look back. He saw that they had already turned the movie's sound back on and were once again immersed in the plot, their faces gradually regaining their previous excitement and focus. The light and shadow from the holographic projection made the scene look exceptionally warm, forming a sharp contrast with the eerie atmosphere outside the carriage. Chapter 191, The Convenience Store in the Mist. After Woody sat in the driver's seat, he stopped looking at the scene outside the window and focused attentively on the content of the survivor's communication channel. He knew clearly in his heart that today, the outside was not only shrouded in mist, but also filled with the dual illusions of sights and sounds. The movie playing inside the vehicle was loud enough, and as long as he didn't look directly out the window, he wouldn't be disturbed by anything. The communication channel had long been flooded with the wails and pleas for help from other survivors, every word and sentence reeking of despair. "Does anyone have extra fuel they can trade with me? I don't have much fuel left, and there's no way to go outside right now. The sounds outside are too realistic. I know clearly that they are fake, but I can't help wanting to open the door. I've tied myself to my seat now. Can someone tell me when this will end? Damn it, the harsh environment before was one thing, but now these illusions. Are we even allowed to live anymore?" Reminder to everyone. Regarding the illusions and auditory trickery, as long as you close your eyes, cover your ears, and stay in a closed space, you won't be affected. My companion just jumped out of the vehicle and ran into the mist. Now I'm all alone, and I'm so scared. There's something outside knocking on my vehicle door, and it's imitating my wife's voice. I can't hold on much longer. Can someone talk to me? I just saw a few abandoned houses, and there seem to be supplies inside, but I don't dare to get out of the vehicle. I got out of the vehicle to look for supplies just now, and was lured into a forest by the illusions. Now I can't find my vehicle. The mist is too thick and I can't tell the direction at all. Can someone tell me what to do? The illusions outside change according to a person's obsessions. I miss my mom the most, so I keep seeing her outside the window. I can't control myself anymore. Woody watched the content in the communication channel, his expression calm yet unable to hide his gravity. He had always known how difficult it was for other survivors, but this survival world was inherently cruel. This cruelty was never directed at any one person but descended upon everyone. Thinking of this, Woody couldn't help but look back at Lin Shi and the others. At this moment, they were still immersed in the movie plot, with relaxed smiles on their faces. The laughter in the vehicle formed a stark contrast with the desperate wails in the channel. Wudi took a deep breath, forcing himself to withdraw his thoughts. Facing the plight of other survivors, he was helpless. Right now, all he could do was try his best to let himself and the companions around him live well. Immediately after, the news from someone in the channel about encountering a building appeared in his mind. Wudi secretly wondered, was this an illusion, or were there really supplies hidden inside? Just at this moment, a prompt from Xiaoxi suddenly popped up on the center console screen. Commander, a building has been detected 1,000 meters ahead. Do you need to pull over and stop? Wudi's gaze fell on the center console screen, staring at the point that was getting closer and closer, and he ordered decisively, Xiaoxi, pull over and stop. Received, Commander. As Xiaoxi's mechanical voice faded, the RV slowly decelerated and stopped steadily on the side of the road. Wudi looked up out the window and saw a dilapidated bungalow standing on the edge of the road. The walls were mottled and peeling. The roof tiles were incomplete. The door hung crookedly on the doorframe, and the windows had long lost their glass, wrapped in the pervasive mist, exuding an indescribable eeriness. Wudi stood up to prepare to get out of the vehicle to check, and as soon as he reached out to pull the vehicle door, Lin Shi and the others immediately noticed. Su Wanwan was the first to speak urgently. Xiaoxi, turn off the sound. The sound of the movie instantly dissipated, and the vehicle compartment immediately fell into silence. Several people stood up quickly, and before they could speak to dissuade him, Wudi saw through their intentions and said decisively, Su Wanwan, come with me to take a look. As he spoke, he turned to the three of Lin Shi, his tone carrying an unquestionable instruction. You stay in the vehicle, lock the door just like before, and no matter what you hear or see, absolutely do not open the door, and do not go near the windows. Although they were full of worry, they knew Wudi's temperament and could only nod in agreement. Afterward, Wudi did not hesitate, opened the vehicle door, and walked quickly toward the dilapidated house with Su Wanwan. The moment they pushed open the door, a scent mixed with dust and mold rushed toward them, and the two subconsciously frowned. Only after entering the room did they realize that this was actually a convenience store. Shelves were piled up askew to one side. Goods were scattered all over the floor, most of which had already spoiled. The corners were covered in spiderwebs, and the ground was covered with a thick layer of dust. After a careful search, the two found several boxes of bottled water in the corner of the shelves, as well as a small portion of dry food like biscuits and bread. After picking up a pack of biscuits and checking it carefully, Su Wanwan turned to Wudi and said, Big Brother Wudi, these things look like they can still be eaten. Although the packaging is broken, there are no obvious signs of mold. Wudi glanced at the worn-out packaging and scanned the blurry production date on the food bag, then shook his head lightly, his tone flat but firm. Forget it. We don't lack these. There's no need to take this risk. The two checked the room carefully again, confirmed that there were no other usable supplies and no abnormalities, then turned and left the convenience store, returning to the RV. Chapter 192. Tentacle Monster. Back inside the RV, Wudi and Su Wanwan briefly informed Lin Shi, Shu Kexin, and Lin Yu about the situation at the convenience store, then signaled Xiaoxi to continue forward. Wudi sat back in the driver's seat and opened the communication channel again. Through his previous observations, he had already grasped the overall situation for today. All survivors were encountering abandoned roadside buildings containing some amount of supplies, with no other anomalies for the time being. Wudi didn't care much for these abandoned buildings or conventional supplies. He was more interested in whether there was other useful news in the communication channel, or special materials that could meet his needs. But after watching for a long while, he still found no valuable information. Eventually, he simply closed the communication channel and turned to check the trading channel carefully. The content of the trading channel was clear at a glance. The items everyone listed for trade were uniformly food and water, while what everyone desperately needed was fuel and various blueprints. After checking carefully, Wudi felt a bit disappointed. He had been hoping to find blueprint-type materials, and there wasn't even a trace of special materials like quantum essence. Why is there no fog near any of the buildings? Wu Di closed the system interface and leaned back in the driver's seat, his brow slightly furrowed as he murmured to himself. He pondered for a long time, but his mind remained blank, without any clues. The RV did not stop, continuing to move slowly through the thick fog, the scenery outside the window remaining blurry. At 10:30 a.m., the center console screen suddenly lit up, and a prompt from Xiaoxi popped up. Commander, detected building and vehicle signals 1,000 meters ahead, as well as biological activity signals. The originally somewhat lethargic Wu Di instantly perked up and immediately ordered, "Xiaoxi, turn off all sounds in the vehicle and stop after getting closer." "Received, Commander." As the movie's sound effects abruptly vanished, Lin Shi, Su Wanwan, Shu Kexin, and Lin Yu, who had been focused on the film, reacted immediately. Lin Shi was the first to stand up and walk quickly to the cockpit, asking softly, "Big Brother Wu Di, did something happen?" Shu Kexin and Lin Yu followed closely behind, their eyes full of doubt, while Su Wanwan looked alert, her gaze fixed on the center console screen. "There might be other survivors ahead," Wu Di said, pointing to the vehicle signal on the center console screen. The RV slowed down and finally came to a smooth stop by the roadside. Looking out the window, they saw a gas station standing at the edge of the road, with a vehicle parked next to it that looked similar to their own RV. At the same time, the radar interface on the center console screen clearly displayed 3 red dots, 2 inside the gas station and 1 outside. Then, detailed information about the monster automatically popped up on the center console screen. Mirage Beast. Appearance: when stationary, it can perfectly mimic common objects in the environment, blending seamlessly with its surroundings, and making it difficult to distinguish with the naked eye. Once activated, its mimicked hard shell will peel off piece by piece, like cracked clay, exposing a slippery, translucent, gelatinous body inside, with limbs oozing from the cracks like liquid, and rapidly extending into several tentacles with suckers. Attack method: skilled at using mimicry to imitate various sounds to lure prey closer, tentacles will wrap around the prey's limbs, and the acidic mucus secreted by the suckers can quickly corrode clothing and skin. Characteristics: vision is completely degenerated, relying on extremely sensitive hearing and vibration perception. Metabolism is extremely low in the mimicked state, making it difficult for conventional radar to distinguish it from the environment. Weakness: movements are clumsy when moving, and the body is fragile. After reading the information on the Mirage Beast, Lin Yu was the first to speak, her eyes full of confusion and worry. "Big Brother Wu Di, there's nothing out there. This mimicry ability is too strong. We can't just go around knocking on everything to find where it is, can we?" Shu Kexin stared at the description of the Mirage Beast on the screen with a strange expression and couldn't help muttering, "A tentacle monster. It even does bondage." Beside her, Lin Shi, Su Wanwan, and Lin Yue all turned to look at her in unison, their eyes filled with a mix of surprise and helplessness. Noticing their gazes, Shu Kexin suddenly felt embarrassed and quickly waved her hands to explain, "What are you all looking at me for?" "I meant this monster is so disgusting. Let me go down in a bit, and I'll take them out one by one with my arrows." The originally tense and heavy atmosphere was lightened considerably by Shu Kexin's interruption, and the solemnity on their faces dissipated somewhat. Listening to their conversation, Wu Di's expression remained calm. After a moment of deliberation, he spoke, "Let's go down and take a look." As soon as he spoke, he noticed the looks in the eyes of Lin Shi and the others. They clearly all wanted to go down with him. Wu Di shook his head gently, his tone decisive. "Too many people will make the target too big. Shu Kexin, you come down with me." Shu Kexin's eyes lit up and she immediately agreed, but couldn't help adding, "Boss, I can go down with you, but I have to make it clear. I'm really not interested in tentacle monsters. I'm just curious." Wu Di ignored Shu Kexin's defense, reached out to open his personal space, took out his katana, and held it firmly. On the other side, seeing this, Shu Kexen also quickly took out her cloud-piercing bow and notched an arrow, her expression instantly becoming sharp. Chapter 193. Conflict breaks out. Wu Di was the first to get out of the vehicle, his gaze sweeping across the surrounding mist. Shu Kexen followed closely behind, nocking an arrow and drawing her bow, warily observing the area around the gas station before turning to Wu Di and whispering in a low voice. "Boss, should we check that RV first, or find the Mirage Beast? Or should I fire a few arrows first?" Wu Di shook his head slightly. He understood Shu Kexen's thoughts. Her cloud-piercing bow had a built-in 1-meter range locking function. He said slowly, "No rush, let's wait a moment." As soon as Wu Di got out of the vehicle, he used his keen perception to catch the faint aura of the Mirage Beast. At the same time, the subtle noises coming from inside the gas station did not escape his ears. It was the sound of clothing rubbing and low-voiced conversation. Clearly, there were more than just monsters inside. Within seconds, the mottled and rusted iron door of the gas station creaked open. 2 figures slowly emerged, their footsteps dragging but carrying a hint of wariness. The man walking in front was about 30 years old, short and stout with a fleshy face. A prominent scar marked his left cheek, and he held a rifle steadily in his hands. The man following behind was thin, with a sallow complexion and sunken eyes. He also carried a rifle, its muzzle pointed slightly downward, remaining on guard. Wu Di recognized that what the 2 men were holding were the same AK-74 assault rifles he had seen previously in the safe zone. As soon as the 2 men stepped out of the gate, Shu Kexen's nerves instantly tightened. She abruptly raised her bow and arrow, the arrowhead pointing precisely at the 2 men, and barked in a cold tone, "Boss, people!" The eyes of the short, stout man and the thin man first landed on Wu Di and Shu Kexen, then swept over the undamaged RV behind them, a flicker of greed flashing through their eyes. When they saw the cold glint of the Tang Dao in Wu Di's hand, and the taut bow and arrow in Shu Kexen's, the greed on their faces instantly vanished. A strange look flashed and disappeared, replaced by a friendly expression. The short, stout man was the first to put away his wariness, slowly lowering the AK-74 in his hand, though it remained close to his body. When he spoke, his voice was coarse, carrying a bit of forced friendliness. "You two, don't get excited, don't get excited. We are also survivors, not bad people. We just found this gas station and wanted to see if there were any supplies or fuel." Wu Di's fingers still gripped the Tang Dao, his expression unchanged. He asked in a flat, emotionless tone, "Besides supplies, have you found anything else in there?" He had always been curious about why this ordinary building could resist the erosion of the mist. The thin man quickly chimed in, his face wearing a fawning smile. "There are quite a few supplies inside, a few cases of mineral water, some compressed biscuits, bread, and a small amount of fuel. We just managed to find them. Looking at your equipment, you aren't ordinary survivors either. If you don't mind, we can share some with you. We're all just trying to make a living in this post-apocalyptic world. It's only right to help each other out." The short, stout man also chimed in, his gaze glued to Shu Kexen, his tone somewhat flirtatious. "Yeah, it's easier to survive if we help each other. Young lady, where are you from? Maybe we're even from the same hometown." Shu Kexen's brow furrowed, the wariness in her eyes intensifying. Her tone was cold and sharp. "My boss asked if you found anything else. Don't waste time, answer truthfully." The friendliness on the short, stout man's face vanished instantly. Stunned by Shu Kexen's toughness, he then revealed an ambiguous smirk. Without even glancing at Wu Di, he took a step forward, slightly raising the AK-74 in his hand, his tone threatening. "Girl, don't be so aggressive. We're kindly sharing supplies with you, and you're putting on airs. Why not follow us? With guns and supplies, it's much better than following him." The thin man immediately followed with a laugh, his eyes leering at Shu Kexen, his tone full of mockery and certainty. "Exactly. He only has a shabby blade. What can he protect you with? Follow us, with guns and supplies. It's better than following him to your death." The two spoke with certainty, clearly believing that with AK-74s in hand, they could completely control Wu Di and Shu Kexen. In their view, no matter how powerful a cold weapon was, it was no match for the speed of a bullet. Woody's expression remained calm, but a hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. How could these two, with their level of intelligence and temperament, have managed to survive until now? Zhu Kexin, however, was thoroughly enraged. Her cheeks flushed red, and she pulled her bowstring even tighter, her fingertips trembling slightly. She was clearly on the verge of an outburst. She was certain that with her cloud-piercing bow, she could definitely kill them both before they could pull their triggers. Just as Zhu Kexin was about to strike, to the right of where the two men stood, the pile of seemingly messy building debris suddenly moved. Scattered bricks and concrete blocks fell away, and a translucent, gelatinous body seeped out from the wreckage. Several tentacles with suckers suddenly surged out, violently wrapping around the thin man nearest to it. Ah! Before the thin man could react, he was tightly bound by the tentacles. The acidic mucus secreted by the suckers instantly corroded his clothes. A piercing, sizzling sound accompanied his screams, and the AK-74 in his hand fell to the ground with a clatter. Chapter 194. I'm just looking. The short, stout man froze as a result of this sudden turn of events, his face turning as pale as paper instantly as he subconsciously took a step back. But he soon regained his senses and abruptly raised the AK-74 assault rifle in his hand. His gaze became extremely fierce, and without any hesitation, he aimed directly at the thin man entangled by the mirage beast and frantically pulled the trigger. Bang! 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 The dull gunshots exploded in the mist with immense penetrative power, instantly shattering the surrounding silence. The dense bullets not only shot toward the mirage beast wrapping the thin man but also inevitably hit the thin man himself. Blood gushed out instantly, staining the gravel on the ground red. The mirage beast's translucent body was riddled with holes, and slimy dark green fluid splashed everywhere. After a few struggles, it completely stopped moving. The short, stout man panted heavily, his face covered in splashed blood and mirage beast fluid. His previous facade of kindness had completely vanished, leaving only madness and ruthlessness in his eyes. He slowly turned his head, aiming the AK-74 directly at Wu Dai and Zhu Kexin, his tone fierce and violent. You bitch, don't refuse when I'm being nice. My brother is gone, so you'll have to take his place. Get over here now, or I'll shoot. The anger in Zhu Kexin's heart could no longer be suppressed. Her fingers gripped the bowstring tightly, and just as she was about to act, Wu Di gently pressed down on her shoulder. Wu Di shook his head slightly, signaling her to stay calm. He then looked up at the short, stout man, his expression calm and rippleless. We have no interest in entangling with you. We only want to know, did you find anything unusual in the gas station? Unusual? I think you're the one who's unusual. The short, stout man was completely infuriated by Wu Di's composure, and began cursing, Fuck you, I'll kill you both first today. After cursing, he pulled the trigger again, and bullets whistled toward Wu Di and Zhu Kexin. At the moment the bullets were about to hit them, Wu Di's figure moved slightly, and the Tang sword in his hand accurately parried all the bullets like silver lightning. After being deflected, the bullet slammed heavily into the nearby wall, sending fragments flying. The short, stout man's pupils constricted, his face filled with disbelief as if he had seen a ghost. How is that possible? What on earth are you? You're not human at all. Fear instantly swept over the short, stout man. He no longer had his previous arrogance and turned to sprint toward the RV parked by the roadside, wanting only to escape this terrifying place as quickly as possible. At this moment, Zhu Kexin, standing behind Wu Di, was still immersed in shock. She had long guessed that Wu Di was powerful after all. Even the physiques of Su Wanwan and the others far exceeded those of ordinary people, but she had never seen such an outrageous scene. Deflecting bullets with a handheld blade was exactly like a scene from a movie. No, even more outrageous than in the movies. While she was dazed, she saw the sprinting short, stout man suddenly collapse to the ground. A cold, glinting Tang sword plunged into his back, the very weapon Wu Di had just been holding. Let's go. We'll go inside and take a look. Wu Di's voice slowly sounded, pulling Zhu Kexin's thoughts back. She nodded hurriedly and quickened her pace to keep up with Wu Di as they walked toward the interior of the gas station together. The two of them searched the gas station carefully, finding the shelves empty and packaging debris scattered on the floor. Clearly, the supplies here had already been scavenged by the short, stout man and the thin man, and nothing usable could be found. As they exited the gas station and passed the thin man's corpse, Shukekson was the first to bend down, picking up the AK-74 assault rifle that had fallen to the side. She also reached out to touch the Mirage Beast's corpse, muttering, "This thing shouldn't be wasted." But as soon as her fingertips touched the Mirage Beast's body, she withdrew her hand with a frown, a look of disappointment appearing on her face. Woody looked at her like this, a flicker of a smile crossing his eyes. Noticing his gaze, Shukekson quickly explained, "Boss, you wouldn't look at me like that, would you? I was just looking at this tentacle monster." "Pa, no, I was checking if this tentacle monster could be decomposed." Finally, she added another sentence. "Fortunately, it can't be decomposed. If I really had to eat it, I wouldn't be able to stomach it." "All right, stop being silly." Woody shook his head helplessly. "Let's go check out that RV." Upon hearing this, Shukekson's spirit was instantly roused, her eyes lighting up. "Boss, I'm good at this." As soon as she finished speaking, she ran toward the abandoned RV by the roadside. Wu Di watched her energetic figure, let out a helpless sigh, and slowly followed. Just as he reached the door of the RV, he heard Shukekson's exclamation, "Boss, why is it so dilapidated here?" Chapter 195, Swept Clean. Wu Di followed Shukekson into the ownerless RV. As soon as he stepped over the threshold, he instantly understood the reason for her earlier exclamation. The shabbiness Shukekson spoke of didn't mean the vehicle was broken and unusable, but rather that the interior was far more cluttered than imagined. The RV's basic facilities were actually quite complete, but the entire interior space was packed to the brim and in utter disarray. Crumpled packaging bags, empty mineral water bottles, and a few dusty old clothes were scattered on the floor. In the corner, several bulging sacks were piled up, filled with all sorts of messy supplies, along with some old items that looked like they had been scavenged from nearby abandoned buildings. Wu Di frowned, his gaze quickly scanning every corner of the vehicle. He spoke to Shukekson, who was standing on her tiptoes to inspect a storage cabinet. "Don't just stand there in amazement. Look for anything valuable and make it quick." Hearing this, Shukekson immediately put away the surprise on her face and nodded, responding with great enthusiasm. "All right, boss." As she spoke, she took the lead, bending over to push aside the clutter and carefully searching through the sacks and storage cabinets, not missing any corner where supplies might be hidden. The two searched the RV thoroughly, but the results were disappointing. The supplies were mostly useless junk, with nothing truly valuable. Wu Di wasn't surprised by this. He knew that truly valuable items should be in the individual's personal spaces. He was about to tell Shukekson to stop searching and leave as soon as possible, but out of the corner of his eye, he saw her quickly stuffing several packages of food that were still in good condition into her personal space. Wu Di spoke helplessly. "Don't take the trash. It'll just take up space and it's useless anyway." Without even looking up, Shukekson explained, "Boss, I know. I'm not just taking anything. I'm only taking supplies that can be exchanged for points and useful items from supply crates. These aren't trash." As she spoke, her hands didn't stop for a second, and she even muttered a count of the supplies. "Boss, don't say that. These two actually had some stuff. 10 cartons of cigarettes, 10 self-heating hot pots, 50 packs of compressed biscuits, and 4 cases of mineral water, all in good condition." She didn't notice the increasingly helpless expression on Wu Di's face at all. Standing aside, Wu Di finally couldn't help but interrupt her. "Stop counting! Finish up quickly so we can head back." Shukekson's hands still didn't stop as she replied casually, "Boss, you're just a well-fed man who doesn't know what it's like to starve. You don't know how miserable my life was before. Sometimes I couldn't even get 1 full meal a day. These supplies might not be much to you, but to me, every single one is a treasure. Besides, even if they're useless, I can trade them with others for some arrows later. It's better than letting them go to waste." Looking at Wu Di now, her playful demeanor had vanished, leaving only an extreme cherishing of supplies in her eyes. Recalling how she had gripped her bowstring and refused to back down earlier, Wudi's heart softened with pity. Her obsession with supplies wasn't greed, but a desperate urge to survive, a stubbornness to hide her vulnerability and unease. Perhaps she only found a sense of security within these small bits of supplies. Just as Wudi was lost in thought, Shukeksan suddenly stopped what she was doing and looked up at him with a troubled expression. "Boss, my space is full. I can't fit the rest of these supplies. Can you help me pack them?" As she spoke, she pointed to the several cases of mineral water and the remaining compressed biscuits piled beside her, her eyes full of expectation. Then Shukeksan noticed the way Wudi was looking at her. She was stunned by his gaze, and instinctively looked down at herself, touching her cheek and tugging at her clothes. Finding nothing unusual, she couldn't help but feel a bit confused and asked, "What are you looking at, boss? Is there something on my face?" As soon as she finished speaking, as if she had suddenly thought of something, a mischievous grin appeared on her face. With a playful look in her eyes, she leaned closer to Wudi and whispered, "Oh, I see. Boss, you're not craving me, are you? If Shixi and the others agree, I don't have any objections." She even winked, looking like she was waiting for a response. Looking at her like this, Wudi let out a helpless sigh and ignored her teasing. He stepped forward, reached out, and put the remaining supplies into his space one by one. Then he turned and walked toward the door, leaving behind a faint remark, "Get down quickly. I'm going to dismantle this vehicle." Seeing that Wudi didn't respond and instead turned to get off the vehicle, the mischievous grin on Shukeksan's face vanished instantly, and she quietly breathed a sigh of relief. That joke just now was partly a sincere probe, partly a carefree front she put on, and partly a stubborn refusal to let him see her weak side. She could only use the joke to hide her inner awkwardness, and while quietly relieved, she forced herself to look indifferent. The two got off the vehicle one after another. Wudi reached out to touch the RV, and as it dismantled and disappeared, he casually put away the vehicle core. At this moment, Shukeksan was looking down and counting the supplies in her space, her face full of a satisfied smile. She seemed to have completely forgotten that before joining this team, she had asked Wudi for a vehicle, and Wudi also didn't seem to recall that he had once promised Shukeksan he would find her a suitable vehicle. Without any more words, the two walked toward their own RV, one after the other. Chapter 196, I Can't Hear Clearly. Back inside the RV, Lin Shi and the others immediately gathered around. Lin Yu immediately rushed to Big Brother Wudi's side, pulling at his clothes to check him carefully. "Big Brother Wudi, are you okay? We heard gunshots clearly from inside the car just now, but my sister wouldn't let me go down." Lin Shi and Su Wanwan didn't say anything, only looking at Wudi with eyes full of worry. Seeing this, Shukeksan's face immediately fell, and she shouted with her hands on her hips, Hey! Is the boss the only one you see? Can't you show some concern for a weak woman like me? I was on the front lines during that hail of bullets, too." She then curled her lip and added, "Besides, the boss can even block bullets. What's there to worry about? What could possibly happen to him?" "I'm fine, don't worry," Wudi replied simply, then gave an order to the air. "Xiaoxi, continue forward." "Understood, Commander." The RV started up, slowly leaving the gas station, and continuing into the depths of the mist. Inside the cabin, Shukeksan pulled Lin Yue and Su Wanwan aside and vividly recounted the events at the gas station, from the Mirage Beast's surprise attack, and the short and stocky man's frantic shooting, to the scene where Wudi blocked bullets with his blade, speaking with great animation. The morning journey was calm, with no emergencies. After a simple lunch, the group gradually noticed something unusual. All outside sounds had quietly vanished. The shouts of loved ones and cries for help heard earlier that morning were now gone, and the entire world had fallen into an eerie silence. Sitting in the driver's seat, Wudi's gaze fell upon the constantly refreshing regional communication channel. Holy crap! Has anyone else noticed things are getting weirder? The illusions are getting more and more ridiculous. A straight road appeared in front of me just now, but when I drove onto it, I realized it was a cliff. I almost went over the edge with my car. I just saw a building marked as a supply point by the road, but when I drove over, I found out it was all an illusion. A reminder for everyone. Find an abandoned building, clear out the monsters inside, and stay still. That way you won't trigger any illusions. Has anyone noticed the big shot at the top of the leaderboard? His vehicle points haven't moved at all for 2 days. Damn it, my radar isn't even working properly. These illusions are too absurd. Trading weapons, food, and water for basic materials. Looking to buy fuel. Does anyone have medicine? I need to buy medicine. My companion is injured. Buying talent fragments. 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 I advise everyone to just stay put if you encounter an abandoned building today. Your life is more important. At that moment, Lin Yui, sitting in the passenger seat, turned her head to look at Wu Di's tense profile and said softly, "Big brother Wu Di, we have Xiaoxi in the radar, so these illusions aren't a threat to us at all. Are we safe for today?" But there wasn't a hint of relaxation on Wu Di's face. His brows were slightly furrowed, and there was a trace of solemnity in his eyes. Logically, their 5-person team should have encountered more crises, but the current calm was unnervingly abnormal. Behind extreme silence, the most lethal dangers often lay hidden. However, the entire afternoon's journey went exceptionally smoothly. Aside from the occasional illusions along the way, they encountered no special circumstances, making the calm feel somewhat surreal. These illusions were impossible to distinguish from reality with the naked eye, appearing no different from real scenery. However, on Xiaoxi's vehicle radar, the corresponding positions were completely empty, with no signal feedback whatsoever. Time flew by until it was 16, when Wu Di suddenly noticed something wrong. The mist outside had begun to expand again. While they could previously see objects about 10 meters ahead, visibility was now less than 10 meters, their vision tightly shrouded by the thick fog. "Xiaoxi, check if there are any abnormalities." As soon as he spoke, Wu Di's heart sank. He clearly felt that his voice had become somewhat strange, muffled and blurred, nothing like his usual tone. "Commander, the mist is continuing to close in." Xiaoxi's voice also came through, similarly becoming faint and raspy. Before Wu Di could think more about the reason, Xiaoxi's notification sounded again. "Commander, a building has been detected 1,000 meters ahead. Should we approach and park?" "Approach and park." "Understood, Commander." Wu Di turned his head and realized that Lin Shi and the others had all gathered around at some point, their faces filled with confusion. Lin Yu was the first to speak, her tone full of puzzlement. "Big brother Wu Di, why are you and Xiaoxi speaking so softly?" As soon as the words left her mouth, Lin Yu herself was stunned. She clearly felt her voice wasn't quiet, yet it sounded exceptionally faint to her ears. Wu Di understood. She had also noticed something was wrong. Wu Di immediately turned to Lin Shi and the others, saying in a low voice, "Something's not right. Everyone, stay alert." Only then did they realize that Xiaoxi had slowly stopped the RV. Together they looked outside and saw the faint outline of a building emerging through the mist. It seemed to be an abandoned convenience store. Wu Di quickly looked at the center console screen. The radar scanning area on the screen was completely clear, with no red dots representing biological entities, indicating no signs of abnormal monster activity nearby. He thought of what had been said on the communication channel, then turned and said to the others in a louder voice, "Let's go down and take a look together." Shu Kexen, however, frowned and shouted blankly, "Huh? Boss, what did you say? Speak up, I can't hear you." Chapter 197, I wouldn't dare. Wu Di stood up and opened the RV door, signaling Lin Shi and the others to get out. They exited the RV one by one. Wu Di pointed to an abandoned convenience store by the roadside and walked toward it first, with the other 4 following closely behind. At the convenience store entrance, Wu Di pushed open the ajar glass door, the hinges making a harsh grinding sound. As they entered, they immediately noticed their hearing had cleared. The muffled sensation from outside was gone, and they could clearly hear each other's breathing and footsteps. Su Wanwan spoke first, her tone filled with doubt. "Big brother Wu Di, I've been checking the communication channel, and it seems no one else is in this situation." The others nodded silently upon hearing this. Shu Kexen frowned and complained with a hint of helplessness. Boss, is this some kind of special treatment for the strong? Every disaster we face is different from everyone else's? Lin Shi analyzed calmly. Big Brother Wudi, we have radar assistance, so the mist doesn't affect us much, but not being able to hear just now was far too dangerous. If an emergency occurs, we wouldn't be able to react in time, and could easily be caught off guard. Wudi nodded slowly, agreeing with Lin Shi's assessment. The mist itself wasn't scary since they had radar to avoid danger, but the loss of hearing was a fatal hidden risk. He fell silent for a moment, his gaze scanning the store's interior. Just then Lin Yu tugged at Lin Shi's sleeve and suggested, "These buildings aren't affected, so why don't we just stay here? Anyway, no one's seen a supply crate today." Lin Yu's words instantly enlightened Wu Di. Thinking about it, it was true. They had plenty of supplies and no need to risk continuing the search. The mist outside was thick and their hearing was impaired, so traveling would only increase the danger. Instead of pushing forward, it was better to rest in this convenience store for a while. Having made up his mind, Wu Di looked at the others. "Let's clean this place up. We'll stay here for the night." "You got it, boss," Zhu Kexen replied immediately. As soon as she spoke, she began rummaging through the store. She quickly found a worn-out wooden stool, wiped the dust off with her sleeve, and placed it before Wu Di. "Sit down and don't move. I'll handle the cleaning." Lin Shi, Su Wanwan, and Lin Yui stood to the side, watching Shu Kexen's deliberately fawning behavior. They exchanged helpless glances and shook their heads slightly. Shu Kexen didn't care at all and turned back to clearing the clutter in the store. Wu Di watched her busy figure and smiled helplessly. "Let's clean up together." It didn't take long for them to clear a clean space in a corner of the convenience store. Once everything was settled, they sat together. The previous tension had largely dissipated, and the atmosphere became much more relaxed. Lin Yu suddenly looked at Lin Shi, her tone full of anticipation. "Sister, how about we have hot pot here today?" Lin Shi and Su Wanwan's eyes lit up instantly, and they both nodded in agreement. Hearing this, Shu Kexen's spirit immediately rose, and she subconsciously swallowed, "Yes, yes, eating hot pot here would be so atmospheric, it's pure bliss." Wu Di looked at her eager expression and said helplessly, "Is it really that big of a deal?" Shu Kexen looked aggrieved and quickly defended herself. "Boss, I've wanted to eat hot pot for ages. I just didn't feel right bringing it up. Besides, compared to other survivors, we have these conditions. Don't you feel a sense of accomplishment?" After saying that, Shu Kexen stood up and grabbed Lin Yu's hand. "Little sister Xiao Yu, let's go to the car to get the ingredients and bring all the hot pot materials over." Lin Yu's eyes brightened. She nodded and instinctively looked at Wu Di. Seeing him nod slightly, she pulled Zhu Kexen along and ran quickly toward the RV. Lin Shi and Su Wanwan looked at each other and stood up as well. "Big Brother Wudi, Sister Wanwan and I will go help get things ready too." Wudi waved his hand. "Go ahead, stay safe." The two agreed and followed toward the RV. Wudi sat on the wooden stool, watching their retreating backs, and let out a soft sigh. After the constant travel and danger, it was rare to have such a peaceful moment for them to catch their breath. An hour later, the open space in the abandoned convenience store was filled with warmth. They sat together around a fire made from wood scraps found in the store. The flames danced beneath a simple rack holding a pot. The broth bubbled inside, releasing a rich aroma. Prepared vegetables and meats were neatly arranged around the pot, creating an exceptionally cozy atmosphere. After finishing the hot pot and cleaning up, Shu Kexen slumped onto the floor, clutching her round belly, and sighed contentedly. "This taste, it's just too wonderful." Lin Yue sat nearby and said with a smile, "Sister Zhu, next time you want to eat something, just ask my sister to make it. There's nothing she can't cook." Before Lin Shi could even speak, Zhu Kexen chimed in. "How could I dare? Jixi is the boss's exclusive chef. I wouldn't dare order her around." Chapter 198, Exoskeleton Armor. Wu Di didn't pay any attention to Shu Kexen's teasing at the moment. His gaze remained fixed on the flickering charcoal fire before him, his expression calm. Soon the others noticed Wu Di's gaze and looked over one after another. Lin Shi's eyes lit up, and she asked tentatively, "Big brother Wu Di, is this charcoal?" Wu Di nodded slowly. "I'm not sure either. Theoretically, this is charcoal, but I don't know if the system will recognize it." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Di ignored the heat of the fire and reached directly into the pile to pull out a piece of partially burned charcoal that was still glowing with sparks, placing it into his personal space. Seeing the newly added Charcoal X1 unit on the system interface, a smile tugged at the corner of Wu Di's mouth. He spoke up, "All right, we have work to do. Strip all the wood that can be dismantled here. Let's prepare plenty of charcoal today." Shu Kexin immediately began to wail, "Boss, my stomach is huge right now. It's not convenient." Despite her words, she still stood up slowly and followed Lin Shi, Lin Yu, and Su Wanwan as they searched through the dilapidated convenience store, dismantling every piece of wood and board they could find and stacking them neatly by the fire. After the busy work, the group sat around the fire again. In a corner of the convenience store, the charcoal fire flickered, casting a red glow on the 5 faces and throwing flickering silhouettes onto the walls. The crackling of the burning wood intertwined with the sounds of the mist outside. They sat or leaned back, their figures stretched long by the firelight. No one spoke, and a silence spread. Everyone seemed to be quietly lost in their own thoughts, with subtle emotions hidden deep in their eyes. Lin Yu leaned against Lin Shi and was the first to break the silence. With a voice carrying a bit of naive confusion, she whispered, "Sister, how much longer will days like this last? Can we ever go back to our old lives?" Lin Shi reached out and gently stroked Lin Yu's hair. Her tone was gentle yet firm as she softly comforted her. "Xiao Yu, don't think too much. You have me, big brother Wu Di, sister Kexin, and sister Wanwan. No matter what lies ahead, we are together." Su Wanwan looked up slightly, her eyes clear and resolute. She spoke, "Don't worry, Xiao Yu. With big brother Wu Di here, we will definitely keep moving forward." Shu Kexin leaned against the wall and waved her hand with an air of indifference. "Oh, I think so much. Things will work themselves out. Anyway, as long as the boss is here, he'll hold up the sky if it falls. We're following the boss, eating well and drinking well, so why worry about the future? If other survivors knew about our current life, they'd be dying of envy." After those words, the group fell back into silence, but this time, the silence was less confused and more settled. Just then, Su Wanwan suddenly stood up and ran quickly toward the RV. Lin Yu hurriedly called out to her, "Sister Wanwan, where are you going?" Su Wanwan didn't look back as her voice drifted over. "My talent treasure chest is about to refresh. I can't miss it." Only then did the others realize the time. Without noticing, it was almost 18. A few minutes later, Su Wanwan ran back from the vehicle, holding a blueprint in her hand. She handed it to Wu Di and said, "Big brother Wu Di, it's another space expansion scroll." Wu Di reached out to take it. Looking down, the information on the blueprint was clearly visible. Space expansion scroll, a special item. After use, it can add 2 square meters of space to a vehicle. He glanced at it, and then casually placed the blueprint into his personal space. Shu Kexin leaned in and remarked with emotion, "No wonder our RV is so spacious. This is incredible." Seeing Shu Kexin's impressed look, Lin Yu couldn't help but giggle. She leaned into Shu Kexin's ear and whispered a few words. Wu Di ignored their playfulness for the moment. His gaze was fixed on the various supplies within his personal space, his brow slightly furrowed as he pondered where to use his talent today. After a moment of contemplation, his gaze landed on the anti-corrosion protective suit, blue quality, he had obtained earlier. Anti-corrosion protective suit, blue quality, made of Teflon-coated composite fibers, it can resist erosion from strong acids, strong alkalis, and organic solvents. Service life is affected by environment and maintenance. Protective performance degrades when discoloration, embrittlement, or cracking occurs. Permanently unlocks the synthesis recipe upon use. Production requirements: metal block X1, plastic X2, rubber X2. Wu Di thought that since he had obtained this item, He might need to use it soon. He scanned the other resources in his space and quickly made up his mind. He suddenly spoke, saying to Lin Yu, "Lin Yui, give me talent amplification." Lin Yu was stunned for a moment, then reacted and quickly replied, okay. As Lin Yue's talent amplification took effect, Wu Di activated his own talent. Ding. Do you choose the anti-corrosion protective suit design plan as the primary sacrifice, and the self-priming filter gas mask design plan, and space expansion scroll as secondary sacrifices? Ding. Talent used successfully. Obtained. E03 Exoskeleton Armor Design Plan, Gold Quality. E03 Exoskeleton Armor, Gold Quality, features a closed full armor wrap configuration. The outer layer is covered with composite alloy ceramic armor, while the inner layer is equipped with shock-absorbing energy gel, effectively resisting direct rifle fire, shrapnel explosions, and heavy blunt force impacts. Armor joints use a sealed locking structure to ensure extreme protection while maintaining mobility. Wearing it significantly enhances load-bearing capacity and melee explosive power and provides environmental adaptation capabilities. The entire structure is sturdy and durable. Even with local damage, it can maintain core protection and basic operations. Some functions require an energy core to be installed to take effect and are replaceable, includes 5 square meters of storage space. Permanently unlocks the synthesis recipe upon use. Usage requirement. Physique 20. Production requirements: metal block X30, rubber X10, plastic X10, glass X10, electronic component X50, energy core X1, quantum essence X10. Chapter 199. Give me some time. Looking at the blueprint he had just synthesized, Wu Di's face showed a complex and unreadable expression. For a moment he couldn't tell whether he should cry or laugh. The equipment corresponding to this blueprint was undoubtedly top tier. As long as it was crafted according to the blueprint and then enhanced, it would reach red quality at the very least. But at the thought of his talent enhancement being another guaranteed minimum second-level promotion, and then looking at the materials required for crafting, he shook his head helplessly and stored the blueprint into his personal space. His current material reserves were still far from enough, and he still had to decide how to use the remaining 10 units of quantum essence depending on the situation. Afterward, Wu Di fell into deep thought. During the enhancement just now, he had intentionally added a self-priming filtering gas mask design plan and a space expansion scroll as sacrifices. As for whether that gas mask design plan had any actual effect, he couldn't be sure for now, but the 5 square meter storage space attached to the new equipment was likely the effect of the space expansion scroll. Thinking of this, his gaze turned to the various blueprints remaining in his personal space, a flash of clear expectation appearing in his eyes. I need to save up more blueprints and materials. Just give me some time, and I can produce items equivalent to the mythical grade at the very minimum. Wu Di calculated inwardly, a smile unconsciously tugging at the corners of his mouth, his eyes full of certainty. The several people nearby had long grown accustomed to the changes in Wu Di's expression after each enhancement. They found it unremarkable and didn't pay much attention. Only Shu Kexin kept her eyes on Wu Di's movements. Seeing him suddenly smile, she couldn't help but lean in to tease him. "Boss, so many people are watching. Don't just celebrate secretly, try to show some restraint." Hearing this, Wu Di looked at her in astonishment, his face full of confusion, not understanding what she meant. Being watched by him, Shu Kexin became even bolder and added, "Boss, that smile of yours just now was like a total creeps. Little sister Xiao Yu is still here, don't go scaring her." Hearing this, Lin Shi, Su Wanwan, and Lin Yu looked at each other and smiled. They were long used to Shu Kexin's lack of restraint and didn't join the conversation, simply staying quietly to the side. Wu Di shook his head helplessly and didn't argue with her. He turned to look outside the convenience store, his expression gradually becoming solemn. He didn't know if any accidents would happen tonight. Previously in the car, outside sounds couldn't penetrate at all. If they encountered a sudden crisis, there would be no reaction time, which kept him feeling somewhat uneasy. Just then he suddenly remembered the mutant constitution fruit he had enhanced while testing his talent yesterday. He immediately took it out from his personal space and tossed it to Shu Kexen. "Keep a good watch tonight. This is your reward." Shu Kexen hurriedly caught the fruit. After checking its attributes, her eyes instantly lit up, but then she asked somewhat hesitantly, "Boss, is it appropriate to give this thing to me?" After speaking, she glanced at Lin Shi and the other two. Wu Di glanced at her, surprised she could say something like that. "You're the weakest, so don't overthink it." Seeing that Lin Shi and the others weren't paying any attention to what Wu Di had given her, Shu Kexen instantly perked up. She lunged up from the ground, rushed to Wu Di's side, grabbed his arm, leaned in, and kissed him on the cheek. Her voice was so excited it changed pitch. "Boss, you're too good to me. I'm your person from now on. I'll go through fire and water for you." Wu Di quickly pushed her away and sighed helplessly. He knew Shu Kexen was always impulsive when excited, but he hadn't expected her to be so regardless of the setting. After Shu Kexen sat back down in her original spot, she realized that Lin Shi and the others, who hadn't reacted much before, were now staring at her wordlessly. She suddenly felt her skin crawl under their gazes and quickly scratched her head to explain, "Hey, I couldn't help myself. It was purely impulsive. Next time there's such a good thing, I'll definitely let you guys go first." After saying that, ignoring the others' gazes, she quickly swallowed the mutant constitution fruit in a few bites. Wu Di naturally noticed their gazes as well, but pretended not to see, instead opening the communication channel to silently observe the activity inside. But before he could look closely, he heard a strange mutter from Shu Kexen beside him. "Boss, I feel so strange. I'm a bit hot all over." Wu Di immediately looked up and saw Shu Kexen's face turning slightly red. Her body swayed, and then she fell straight down. Lin Yu, however, didn't care much this time and instead muttered softly, "That's what you get for showing off. You can just sleep on the floor tonight." At this moment, Su Wanwan stood up and said, "Big brother Wu Di, I'll take her into the domain space. Wait, you all should go back together. I'll be fine here alone." Wu Di pondered for a moment and thought it through. Rather than having them stay here, it was better for them to return to the domain space. After all, if they encountered a crisis that even he couldn't solve, the three of them staying here wouldn't be of any help anyway. Lin Shi spoke up then, "Xiao Yue, you go back with Sister Su." After saying that, she turned to look at Wu Di with a firm tone. "Big brother Wu Di, I'll stay here and keep watch with you. In case of any special circumstances, I can help alert you." "Sister, Lin Yu stopped mid-sentence and hesitated for a moment. Ultimately, she stood up and said to Su Wanwan, "Sister Wanwan, I'll go back with you." Su Wanwan looked at Wu Di, and seeing him nod slightly, she picked up Shu Kexen and signaled for Lin Yue to follow as they walked toward the vehicle. Chapter 200. A Quiet Night. Watching Su Wanwan carry the unconscious Shu Kexen and lead Lin Yu into the RV, the area around the campfire instantly fell silent, leaving only Wu Di and Lin Shi. The flickering firelight reflected on their faces, waxing and waning. For a moment, no one spoke, only the faint crackling of burning charcoal and the subtle sound of wind outside the window made the atmosphere exceptionally quiet. After a moment of silence, Lin Shi spoke first, her voice gentle and filled with a hint of doting. "Big brother Wu Di, did you know? Xiao Yue used to always cling to me at home. On the surface, she looks lively and extroverted, always talking and laughing, so others think she's brave. But she's actually very timid inside. Even the slightest rustle of grass can make her nervous for a long time." Lin Shi looked at Wu Di, reached out to pick up a piece of wood from the side, gently added it to the campfire, and continued. "Xiao Yue was also always getting into trouble. Back then, Mom would always nag her about being naughty, but she just wouldn't admit her mistakes, looking all defiant. But as soon as night came, she would quietly snuggle up to me and whisper that those things were just accidents." At this point, Lin Shi looked at Wu Di again and said softly, "Big brother Wu Di, thank you. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have become of Xiao Yu and me." Wu Di's hand, which was collecting charcoal, paused for a moment. He said, "Don't dwell on what happened before." Lin Shi nodded gently and spoke again. "Sister Wanwan is different. She looks composed and cautious, but in her heart she trusts you the most. No matter what, as long as it's your decision, she never questions it. Lin Shi watched Wu Di as he added wood and gathered charcoal, then said with a smile, "And Sister Zhu, although she's usually loud and outspoken, always teasing you, I feel like even if you tried to drive her away now, she wouldn't leave." She laughed after saying this, clearly remembering how Shu Kexin was when she first arrived. Wu Di looked up at Lin Shi, a faint curve appearing at the corner of his mouth. "With her around, things are less dull." The two conversed back and forth. Most of the time, it was Lin Shi talking about the girl's little thoughts, while Wu Di occasionally chimed in, adding wood or collecting charcoal from time to time. There was no need for extra pleasantries, they shared an unspoken understanding. As the night deepened, the fog outside the convenience store remained thick, but no unusual activity occurred. The surroundings were so quiet that only the crackling of the campfire and their soft conversation could be heard. In this way, the two sat by the campfire, chatting idly, and before they knew it, it was late into the night. The campfire gradually grew weaker. Wu Di added more wood, only to turn and find Lin Shi leaning on his shoulder. Her eyes were hazy, and she had clearly succumbed to sleepiness, drifting off in a daze. He gently adjusted his posture to make her more comfortable, while his gaze remained vigilantly fixed out the window. The night passed without incident. As the horizon began to pale with the first light of dawn around 5 in the morning, Lin Shi slowly opened her eyes. The faint scent of charcoal lingered around her nose. Looking down, she realized she was actually leaning in Wu Di's arms. Her cheeks instantly flushed red, and she hurriedly sat up, her eyes darting away, not daring to look at him. Just then, the door of the RV was pushed open, and Su Wanwan, Lin Yu, and Shu Kexin walked in together. Shu Kexin was full of spirit. As soon as Lin Yue entered, she stepped forward urgently and said, "Big Brother Wu Di, everything inside the vehicle has returned to normal. It should be fine now." Wu Di nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping outside the convenience store. A hint of realization flashed in his eyes. The mist outside the vehicle had receded to about 10 meters. It seemed things had indeed returned to normal. Shu Kexin immediately approached, patting her chest and shouting exaggeratingly, "Boss, I'm full of energy now and incredibly strong. If we face any danger today, I'll take the lead." As she spoke, she swung her arms, vigorously showing off her strength. Hearing their voices, and remembering how she had been leaning in Wu Di's arms just now, Lin Shi's cheeks burned even hotter. She hurriedly stood up and stammered, I'm going back to cook." With that, she rushed back to the RV, afraid that staying a second longer would reveal her embarrassment. Shu Kexin stared at her rushing back, her face immediately filling with suspicion. She turned to Wu Di, winking and nudging him. "Boss, what did you do last night? Why is Zixi acting so weird? Her face is so red and she ran off so fast." Before Wu Di could speak, she stepped closer and lowered her voice, wearing an "I understand" expression. "Boss, let me tell you, Zixi is still a young girl. You can't go doing anything worse than a beast." Lin Yue and Su Wanwan finally realized what she meant and looked at Wu Di one after another, their expressions quite peculiar. Wu Di helplessly pressed his forehead, stood up, and walked over to Shu Kexin. He tapped her on the head, his tone carrying a hint of disdain. "You talk too much. Stop making wild guesses. Go back and pack your things. We'll set off after breakfast." Shu Kexin clutched her head where it had been tapped, curled her lip, and followed Lin Yue and Su Wanwan back to the vehicle.